It's summer 2023. This is the Climate Alarm Clock. This week's headlines: devastating wildfires in Rhodes, Sicily, Greece and Algeria. Devastating flooding in India and Korea. New study finds concerns about the AMOC. Antarctic sea ice at record low levels. Mediterranean Sea hits highest ever temperature. In Florida, ocean temperatures hit 38 degrees. And in Ireland, Leo Varadkar wants to build more roads. Hello and welcome to the Climate Alarm Clock, your Irish climate news podcast. We are officially on a break for the summer, but after the past couple of weeks of extreme climate-induced weather, we decided to get together to chat through the latest climate news. So I'm joined by the usual climate team, Ciara Daly and Anna Pringle, and delighted to be joined by regular contributor Tom Spencer as well.
Woo woo.
Really lovely to see you. We're recording this on a Friday evening. Normally it's an early morning record. It's an evening record. Half of the people here have had a nice Friday evening drink as well.
What? Half? I'm in the wrong half of that.
Apart from the lack of alcohol, Anna, how are you keeping?
Oh, Darragh, I tell you, what a week it's been. Grand. I'll just start with grand. We can get into it more in a bit, but I'm glad we're talking because I think even though we're supposed to be on a break, I think we all felt at the same time we need to talk about all this that's going on. So I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, I think I might preface this episode that this, I think, for me is a chance to process everything that's going on personally, and hopefully people who are listening get something out of it as well.
Yeah.
Ciara, how are you keeping?
I'm okay. I actually am okay. I've been having a great break from the Climate Alarm Clock, putting my head in the sand, so I'm actually doing all right. Come back to me after the episode and then you can have a real answer from me.
Okay, great. Tom, how are you keeping?
I'm the same as you. I think general climate anxiety anyway. I certainly did have to have a drink after doing a few hours of pretty dedicated research before this record. There's so much going on. So yeah, getting the opportunity to talk about it out in the open, I think will be really good. And I hope for people listening at home as well, this is kind of an opportunity to hear some different views on this and try and get it out in the open.
Mm.
Yeah, for sure. I think, being totally honest, I would say my climate anxiety this week is probably the worst it's been since before doing the Masters. Probably the worst it's been in a few years. I think just, really hit me really, really hard. I was meant to be going on a first date with someone I met online there on Wednesday, and I got to the train station and I just turned around and came home because I just couldn't.
Inflicted on them.
Yeah, my head just wasn't in a good enough place. I was too kind of preoccupied and stuff. So yeah, called that off, and then I ended up listening back to the COVID alarm clock. I never listened to any of our podcasts back all that much. Listened back to the COVID alarm clock and heard myself from a couple of years ago, basically saying like all this stuff is going to happen. And I think, Tom, before we came on, you mentioned it, like nothing that's happening now, there's no new information. It's all stuff that we knew was coming. But I suppose just kind of seeing it play out does.
So what was it, Darragh, that amped up? Given that, what was it that amped up your anxiety then?
I think, probably a bit too much doom scrolling. There was one day I was on Twitter and it was like the start of a disaster movie. Seeing the fires in the Mediterranean, seeing crazy floods all over the place, seeing storms, seeing tornadoes, and just I think just seeing all of that together, and then I suppose the seeing it on the news, which is really good, but I think I get used to things not being on the news, and then when it actually is on the news, then you're like, oh, this actually isn't this isn't in my head, this is a real thing. And then also probably having in the back of my head, it is on the news now, and then the journalists are going to forget about it again in a few days. And, and knowing that this could be the time that it's different and that people start paying attention, but it's probably not going to be. And I think that's played out already. It's not headline news anymore. So
that's why it's so important to talk about it, is because an increasing number of people are constantly coming to this. And whether their response is to bury their head in the sand, which is a valid response. This is a really scary and big thing. But, the ostrich that buries its head in the sand, the rest of it's still exposed to the problem.
Yeah.
That problem is still there, even if we want to ignore it. And the more people that are coming to it, we still don't really talk about the emotional response to this or the mental health side. That climate anxiety is going to become bigger and bigger and bigger with delay. And I think people need to feel like they can talk about it and let it out, because the more you keep it in, the bigger it gets as a problem for you. And collectively, we can find comfort or find action. And I think it's really important, it's really brave and important that you're talking about it, because you're not alone. And I think other people will find solace in the fact that you did that. And there might be other people that are in the same boat as you, going about their daily life. Something as optimistic, maybe, and stressful as a first date, that, that can be overwhelmed by these bigger things that feel really difficult and not easy to escape, and like maybe you can't have much control over them.
Yeah. And I think
that sorry, go ahead, Darragh.
I think the other thing is when something like this happens and there's loads of extreme weather, I think everyone in the climate movement has that same paralyzing fear around the same time. Whereas normally in the sort of normal-ish times, people in your climate circles are in different parts of that kind of cycle of, fear, despair, anxiety, hope, anger, and you can kind of find people to latch onto and pull you out of that kind of anxiety. But when something,
now we're all just in the middle,
exactly,
like in a huddle.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's another thing that makes weeks like this challenging.
But it's just the sheer. It feels like, or it felt like, the whole planet is on fire. Or at least the whole northern hemisphere. I think in recent weeks, in one way or another. And then on top of that, you have the ocean being at its hottest. The North Atlantic marine heat wave is continuing. You've got Antarctic sea ice in the depths of winter not coming back the way it should come back. So you've just got so many different things going on. And those are two more worrying things than wildfires in Greece, actually. But I think for me, one of the sort of fascinating and sad things about the Mediterranean in particular was the fact that we really only cared about the places where there were people on holidays. So for the first couple of weeks, it was all about Mediterranean, European heat waves. I'm looking at going, lads, can you see Tunisia? Can you see Algeria here? They are baking. Can you see Libya, where people are living in camps and it is baking? And only then towards the end, I think about 10 firefighters died in Algeria, and there was a mention of that. But that was almost the first mention.
Well, there was 34, at least 34 people dead from the fires in Algeria.
Yeah, that was the day after. Yeah. So I just there's a part of me that it was sort of had the doom scrolling thing, but then also just I don't know, rage at our privilege about it as well. I mean, some of the accounts from people who were on holidays, and like there was one that I read where they were flown out, and right enough, they shouldn't have been flown out, to Rhodes on the Saturday night. They got in and they had to stay in a refuge. They weren't allowed to go to their hotel. And the refuge, just the standards were just not good enough. There wasn't water and there wasn't food in the refuge. And then they went, and, they could have given us an option of a different hotel, but they didn't. And I'm looking at them going, oh my God, like, check your fucking privilege here. You're on holidays on an island that is burning. And all you care about is the facilities, and the Greek people are giving you free food and drink and trying to do their best to take care of you. And while their island burns, and all we care about is holidaymakers.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Going back to the sort of climate anxiety, there was a brilliant piece. Hopefully a lot of people have read it, but if anyone is suffering with climate anxiety or is only starting to put a label to it, Peter Kalmus is a climate scientist who works for NASA. He has been an incredible voice amongst many other brilliant researchers, but he put a piece in The Guardian this week and he said, I've dreaded this depth of Earth breakdown for almost 2 decades. And like many of my colleagues, I've been trying to warn you. I tried as hard as I could. Now it's here.
Yeah.
And I think for anyone who's been at the forefront, I saw Hannah Daly from Cork recently put out a post on Twitter, and she was saying, these are people that have dedicated their lives to looking at this, trying to understand the patterns, and they have seen what's coming and have tried to do their best. And it's really coming home to roost for all of us now. And as you say, it's coming home to roost in the global north, where the global south isn't responsible for the vast majority of emissions, but has already been reaping the worst outcomes of it for decades at this point. So it's it's good to hear everyone else is in the same state of mind as I am.
Well, Thomas, I am not in the same state as any of ye three. I am going to make a confession. So I should be embarrassed to say this, considering that I am literally on a podcast about climate news, but I have not been paying attention to the news the last few months, and I'm not embarrassed about it. I'm looking at you, Anna, saying and I can feel the anger in your what you're saying, and I'm really, in a weird way, happy to see that, because that's such I think a better place to be than where kind of maybe Darragh is at the minute.
Oh, thanks, Ciara. That's just what I needed to hear. Great, yeah.
No, I feel like it's a more useful emotion, because for the last few years of doing this podcast, it's been a bit of a journey for me, I suppose, for lack of a better term. And I mean, you guys have literally watched me realize the severity of the climate crisis in real time. It's happened on this podcast, it's happened on these Zoom calls, and you guys have been, you've answered so many of the questions that I have had about it with such patience and such just kindness as well, I suppose. And I mean, I really only got involved with this project. When I got involved with it, A, I didn't really know an awful lot about it, and B, I kind of just got involved with it for selfish reasons of it just kind of made me feel like I would be doing something. And I suppose it also was the fact that Darragh, you're my friend, and you'd asked me to help out with a couple of things, and I just kind of felt like I had to stop saying no. But so I've just kind of had so many emotions over the last 2 years of being involved with this project. And I run a marketing agency. So at one point I remember sitting in my office and texting you, Darragh, being like, oh my God, I need to close down my business because I'm just promoting consumerism. And I was like, I was really having this kind of, what am I going to do in my life moment? And I was really serious. I was really upset about it. But I suppose during that time then, or this whole entire process of getting more involved with it, I've also just kind of had a lot of personal lessons. It's really easy, and I really learned this lesson from COVID. It's really easy to give into that feeling of the doom and the gloom, and just feel the more you scroll, the more you're kind of almost, because you're more knowledgeable about it, it means you care more. And then it kind of eggs on that feeling you just like to start screaming to make people listen. And to some degree you do kind of need to start screaming. I'll circle back to that, I suppose, in a minute. But now my frame of mind, I suppose it's just more give yourself a break. We did that episode with John Gibbons, and he was okay. So I'm not as I wouldn't go as far as what he said, where he said you just have to assume you're dead. I wouldn't say that's what I'm doing right now.
That's not exactly what he said, but I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm just my thing right now is there's no point wasting my energy on freaking out. Where I am right now, that's not to say I won't later, but right now I'm just saying just do your best. Just stay enthusiastic that change is possible, because right now I don't have the energy to be overwhelmed and upset. I don't have the energy to be angry, and I suppose I'm actually just okay with that right now, because I know it doesn't mean that I don't care. It's I guess I'm just kind of giving myself a chance to boost my energy.
It's self-care.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
you have to do that, because we all, I think what I'm taking from what you're saying, Ciara, is that it comes in waves for all of us. And I think that's what
Yeah.
Darragh was saying earlier
absolutely.
as well, that, you have moments where you feel fired up and energetic and other moments where it's like doom and gloom. And you have to find ways to manage that
Yeah,
ebb and
exactly.
flow
Yeah,
and to stay with it, so.
and
Yeah.
I think what you said there, Tom, about climate anxiety is going to become a bigger issue. I think that's something that really hit me in the last while, is that Greta said something there during the week about what's happening now this isn't the new normal. Like, things are going to get worse, and they're going to get worse, and they're going to get worse. So actually, like, it's not a case of, oh, I've seen this terrible weather this year, and now, like, I've accepted that and I'll be prepared for that next year. There's going to be something else, next year or the year after.
Yeah.
And it's really about, like, being prepared for that constant change. And absolutely, Ciara, like, definitely giving yourself a break, for sure.
But can I ask you, Ciara, though, really interested in what you're just saying, and also trying to figure out, when you said you haven't been listening to the news, so did you hear about the wildfires? Did you hear about the Mediterranean heat wave? I mean, and I'm not being critical of you if you didn't. I'm just trying to understand, how many people are out there where that's just not even registering for them?
Yeah. So, okay, it's not that I haven't been paying attention to it, but I suppose I liken it to when COVID came along. I remember those first 2 or 3 days. I just sat there and I just kept scrolling on Twitter looking for the first day that the first death in Ireland. And I don't know why I was doing that. Like, what was I going to do with that information? I was just, like, consumed by it. So I suppose, like, obviously I've seen these headlines. I haven't totally checked out. But I didn't allow myself to descend into that, like, thought sequence of, like, what the consequences, like, what this really all means. I just was like, oh, this is really shit, and then I just went back to doing what I was doing.
I get. So you just kind of took it at face value as a news item and didn't kind of tack it onto your kind of existing knowledge of climate.
That's something I think that I've taught myself to do, because I remember making the conscious decision. There was one thing, I don't remember what it was. Oh, it was about the IFA. Anything about food, I'm going to get into it. But I was like, no, like, don't. Do you know what it is? I have a holiday coming up next week from work. So I was like, I just have to get through my work. I was like, I'm going to solve the climate crisis after my holiday. And I think that's fine.
Great.
That's the unfairness of the timeline, is that, like, obviously we're 60 years since the first opportunities to do something about this. If anyone had intervened at any point, we would have that freedom, like you're saying with COVID, we'd have that freedom just to take a break when we needed it, to have that breath.
Yeah.
Like I used to sort of feel quite overwhelmed by that negative emotion, and it took me a while to realize negative emotion is actually really valuable. I felt angry because I didn't know what to do, or because I didn't feel I could do anything, and I realized that anger could also be like a rocket fuel. It can propel you in the right direction and sustain you and keep you going. You don't want to let it blow up on the launch pad. That's not healthy or positive, but it is that unfairness, and I think that's the thing I really empathize with younger people particularly, is they haven't even got the vote, many of them. Like they can't even be engaged in that way because they're not allowed to be. So, like, the level of anger or frustration or sadness or anxiety for them, like, God, like, that's not to undermine everyone's right to switch off, because we need to, and you have to find that balance to self-sustain.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree, Anna, as well, with what you said there a while back about, it wasn't so much the wildfires that got me so much as the Antarctic sea ice being at a record low, and then that news about the AMOC or the AMOC, the current in the Atlantic, could collapse as early as 2025, with a sort of central estimate that it might happen around 2050, and that's sort of a bit of a contested publication, and lots of thoughts and opinions coming out of it. But it certainly seems that what the IPCC have been saying about it, that it was unlikely to collapse this century, that might have been a bit overly optimistic. Yeah. And for me, that was probably the straw that broke the camel's back, because that's just like, if if and when that happens, it just all bets are off. It feels like.
Yeah,
I wonder would
and-
this have been? Sorry, go on, Anna.
No, go ahead, Ciara.
Well, I was just going to say, I wonder, is it like, because, you're all, we started off there and you were kind of saying, Darragh, like, it feels like everyone in the climate circle is kind of going through the same thing. But really, when we listen to it, we're actually all in very different minds, I think. I wonder, is it anything to do with the fact that maybe we had been not recording these last few weeks, that we're all kind of, like, we're obviously not in touch as much as we usually would be. I wonder, does that kind of have that anything to do with your feeling of like that everyone was kind of
Well, no,
I
a lot of people I've been talking to in the last couple of weeks have just been like very, 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 very overwhelmed with
Same.
everything.
The pace of it's gone from this very sort of, I've been lucky enough to be a contributor on several occasions, but I otherwise just listen to ye, and it's kind of nice that every week it feels like here's the 2 or 3 things that we need to deal with, and there's another 20, 50 that could also be picked up, but these are the big ones, and that feels nice because it breaks it down, it makes it more manageable. But it's the level in the last fortnight, not even the last month, that has just been it's here, it's now inescapable. And I suppose, depending on your level of media consumption or social media consumption, that then gets mirrored by political denial, political inaction, or climate denial by commentators or people online. If you're engaging in that level, and maybe that's very unhealthy, then it becomes this big inescapable thing that you sort of go, shit, this is accelerated so much.
Well, I mean,
faster.
it just seems like July. Just a lot of things came together in July with all of the heat records and everything, and I think that's what made us go, whoa, can we just talk about this? Because like, even my husband, who normally brushes me off when I'm dooming and glooming, he even Dennis was like, it feels like a lot is happening now, and it feels like things have all of a sudden. And there's a lot of scientists that, and you're right, Ciara, maybe we shouldn't follow them, but there's a lot of scientists that are people like Peter Kalmus and whoever, and people who have been less bolshy than him along the way, actually, who are saying, so shit's just got real. They are very, very worried. Climate scientists are worried. And they're not worried because any of this was unexpected. I think they're worried because all of this was kind of projected to happen, but it's the happening.
Pace.
It's the pace and the extreme that's happening. And also what they're starting to say is that there are consequences that are coming with it that maybe weren't anticipated in the models or weren't anticipated to happen so soon.
Yeah. So I think, like, in terms of, obviously we've all seen the extreme weather. I think one of the things that stands out to me is that, it's the hottest July ever. 21 of the we're recording this on the 28th of July, so we're only 28 days into July. 21 of the hottest days ever recorded have happened in July of this year. So 21 of the last 28 days have been the hottest days ever recorded, which, in terms of the pace of change, as you say, Anna, like, that is just unbelievable and incredible. And I think what you mentioned there about Dennis, being aware of it, I found that as well. People who aren't normally aware of climate stuff being aware of it, and I also find that a bit disconcerting because you have some people in your life who like they're your escapism. And it's like and even though obviously you want them to learn and you want them to move on, it's still a shock to your system when they get to that point, and it does just make it a bit more real for you. And I think the other thing then that has scared me or that has angered me or whatever, maybe more so than the weather, is kind of the response and the reaction by kind of people in power. I think that's, and the denial. You think, like, now it's right in front of our faces. It's so obvious. It's so clear. Like, surely the deniers are going to fall away at some stage, and they're not. They're doubling down. And that was something I knew all the climate stuff's going to happen. I knew we were going to see extreme weather. I knew, maybe come faster, but I knew it was going to come. But the increase in in the kind of deniers, just, you know, like it's undeniable, but they just carry on, they double down, and I find that really hard to take as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's our leaders, and then there's a lot of people saying things like, "Oh, it's just weather," blah. But I mean, I think the you mentioned it earlier, the Taoiseach and his "oh, we need more roads" comment.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's
what an example of Orwellian doublespeak. I mean, seriously.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, here's a rail review. This says we need more roads.
Yeah. So I guess to sort of fill listeners in on that, in case that's something that they haven't heard about, and then we can maybe discuss that and discuss the kind of political side of all of this. First of all, the Climate Change Advisory Council came out and said Ireland will not meet its carbon budget targets for 2025 and 2030 unless urgent action is taken immediately. That's something we already knew. That's something that, it's good to hear the Climate Change Advisory Council say it. Heard almost nothing from Leo Varadkar about that, and that's a bugbear of mine, that the climate action plan is in the department of the Taoiseach, and there's no accountability coming from the media. There's no asking him. He should be asked about climate change every single time he's interviewed, every single time. Just like when COVID was going on, whatever the topic of discussion, you ask them about COVID because it's a big issue. Climate's the same. And then kind of to compound that, an All-Ireland Rail review was announced with plans to increase rail, the rail network by 2050. And Leo Varadkar then said that this is a good opportunity to build more roads. So he said, the programme for government said there should be a 2-to-1 split in favour of public transport over roads. So basically, if we're spending more on rail, that means we've more to spend on roads. He said the case for further investment in roads is really strong. And
Leo's mad for road.
And that is pure electioneering,
But
it is.
Yeah, it's like it's
Guys, you're pulling me out of my Ambook cave face.
It's
having a glass of wine there, Ciara.
But it's just borderline denial. I don't think he understands it. I don't think he understands climate change.
He understands it. He understands it.
I don't think he does. How could you be such an asshole?
No. That comment is all about, like, don't worry, lads. There'll be roads coming to your constituency. There's an election coming up in a year.
I don't think so. I don't think anyone's that much of a prick.
No, don't be so naive. Of course he understands it.
Wow.
Totally.
But there's also this.
Go on, Tom. Before
there's this sort of hard
board.
And soft denial. You know, like on the front of it, you can go right. There's the hard denial. There's the sort of a rail review, and you're talking about roads. But the soft denial, the one that I think is sort of perhaps more Machiavellian, is we're still talking about 2050. The rate that we're going right now, 2050 is a death sentence. We don't have time to waste.
Yeah.
We don't have the carbon budget to talk about 2050. We barely have the carbon budget to talk about 2030. So like this, the softer stuff that is more easily swept under the carpet because he's making an absolutely stupid statement.
Yeah.
Like that softer stuff is still really impactful because I think there's this idea, and like it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about in the introduction. And I think like Ciara's talked about it really well, which is how do you balance the sort of near term with the far term? You have to sustain yourself here, but also you have to have put systems in place where you're going to have a long-term future. And this idea of talking about, we'll do something by 2050, which we all know will be 2060, 2070 by the time it actually gets done. Yeah.
And you listen to that rail review. I mean, it actually had a spur going into Donegal, a railway line from Derry to Donegal, and everything in Donegal is like, yeah, right.
Yeah,
that's never going to happen.
But,
so it's a review. It's a plan. It's not even a thing.
Yeah,
it's a very Irish thing.
But I suppose that the thing for me, when I said that I don't think he understands it, is like I might get some TD to put through a parliamentary question, like how much time in a given week does he spend on climate? Like how much time, and this applies to every politician. How much time a week do they spend on climate work? How much time a week or a month or a year do they spend actually being like, this is complicated, I'm going to take time to understand this? Like if you went into a press conference with the Taoiseach or any TD and said, right, you have 2 minutes there, tell us what you know about climate change. What would they say? Like, They haven't. I really think that they don't understand it. Like, I really think they don't, and because they're never held to account in it. Like, you never hear them asked about it. You never hear them having to explain anything. I genuinely think like they know the phrases. Oh, it's an existential threat. It's the biggest crisis of our time. But ask them to get into the nuts and bolts of it. They haven't got a clue. I really don't think the vast majority. I think the vast majority really do not actually understand it.
Yeah.
Some of them do, but they're not
some of them
hearing it.
do. Yeah.
But nobody is coming into their constituency offices and asking them about it. And, so every so often there's letter campaigns or whatever. That's fine, but nobody is stopping them on the street or going into their offices and saying, "What are you doing about this?" But until that happens, they don't have to care about it.
I disagree. I disagree. That is such a cop out. Like, imagine if
I'm not making excuses for them. I'm just saying that's a fact.
But that's what they say, and that is a cop out. Like, imagine if that's what happened with COVID. Imagine, like, there's people dying in the hospitals, but nobody said anything. Nobody wanted to do anything. Like, this is a crisis. It's an emergency. And they need to be showing leadership, and they need to be explaining it.
I agree, they need to be showing leadership, but I'm telling you that for a lot of them, until they are hearing it on the doorsteps and in their constituency offices, they will not do that. And we have local elections coming up next year. So you talk about opportunities to get involved or do something. We have local elections coming up next year. That is an opportunity to be hammering them on the doorsteps on this. You've got a general election coming up not long after that. Again, another opportunity. And that is what gets them focused. So that's the time to really be bringing this up constantly with your local representatives. Ciara, I know you're good at that. So
yeah, there was maybe we can get into the media stuff. There was Pat Leahy from the Irish Times had a really good article last Saturday. He wouldn't be someone I'd often praise. It's called "Politicians Know It's Getting Hotter, Wetter and Wilder. Why Aren't They Preparing?" And it was really good, talking about the need for Ireland to adapt and the fact that politicians are, really not doing what they should be doing. And then he was the one that wrote the article about Leo Varadkar's comments on roads. He didn't mention climate change at all. The only time climate change was mentioned was when he had an Eamon Ryan quote that basically turned the article into this like both sides thing of, well, Eamon Ryan says climate change is important and Leo Varadkar says roads are important, and just totally devoid of facts. So the answer to that article, why aren't they preparing? It's because you journalists aren't holding them to account, is a big part of it. A big part of it. Anyways, there's a rant. We're low on the rants there, so there's one.
I had a small rant on the media side of things too, which I'll try and keep brief. But it's I think it's been such a telling time, and I think you've hit on something there, which is it a lack of understanding, or is it a lack of compassion and caring? I just looked it up while we were chatting. There was you might remember back in March, there was a discussion where Fine Gael said that they were getting more emails about transgender issues than the eviction ban. And it took 2 months for it to come out that was an absolute lie, that there were hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of emails that came through about the eviction ban. And I think it was 5 that came through about any transgender issue.
Probably often
but the media
same
went out. Yeah, and the media went out and the media reported this. There is this massive gap between media accountability, which is supporting a lack of political accountability. And we only need to look at the last few weeks. The RTE Gate situation has shown systemic failures in our national broadcaster, a public broadcaster that we pay for. But RTE is such a perfect example about how they're failing to report on the climate crisis. You look at the business reporters who report on Ryanair, for example, they never mention emissions. But even this week, we've seen a huge number of examples. The Iconic Media, they own most of the local papers, so like the Limerick Leader, Tip Live, that kind of thing. They ran an AI article, "Should refugees go home?" This was a hugely inflammatory article, which showed a massive undermining of any journalistic ethics, the undermining of journalistic talent that they had within the papers. And that comes at the same time as you've seen the Irish Independent platform, David Quinn, someone that you know who he is, you know what he's going to say. No one will take him on because he will go and try and sue people that do. So they platformed his climate denial. And we've already seen people like in the last week it might have been two, but Pádraig Fogarty has been censored by the Irish Farmers Association. All of these things don't add up to a public debate. These are culture wars. These are things where we take particular issues, things that often have a fundamental scientific understanding or data that underpins them, and we turn them into you are on one side or you're on the other.
Yep.
And the media is kind of fundamental to that. I mean, one other example, I'll cease the rant shortly, but one other example that I thought was quite apposite this week anyway was Julia Hartley-Brewer, someone that has, makes a living from climate denial, was on holiday in Sicily. Yeah, and she tweeted, Sicilians are taking the fires in their stride because they're used to them.
Oh, Christ.
And meanwhile, there was a woman from Sicily who was tweeting, I don't know if you saw this, she was a local who lived there, and she was saying, we need help. We haven't had power in Catania. We haven't had power. Our water's turned off. The fires are coming, and there's no response from our national government. There's nothing in the media. And I was reading this going, first of all, I was like, seriously, is this credible? Because it sounded so extreme, and it's Sicily. And then I was like looking into it, and there was lots of Italian coverage, and I was going, it actually is credible. It's exactly what was happening. While Julia Hartley-Brewer is like dismissing it for clicks, basically. Yeah. And you go, this is Sicily. It's like, this is Europe. It was just, and the pictures of people driving through flames on highways.
Wow.
Oh, I mean, it was hell. It looked like an inferno. And yet we could dismiss it so easily. On top of that then, GB News presenter Neil Oliver, he did a spiel that was accusing broadcasters of driving fear and misreporting temperatures. And, he was dismissing the fact that there's supposedly terrifying temperatures, and then cast doubt on how the weather is being measured and how the temperatures are being measured. And, but the scary part of that is, okay, so we all know GB News, you wouldn't pay any attention to them, except that that's been watched 2 million times.
Yeah. Yeah. And you hear that thing of, once misinformation gets out there, you have to hear the correct thing 8 times or something like that.
Exactly.
Once the stuff is out there. And I think that's what I was saying earlier about, I just can't believe how people are doubling down with the denial. And it is like, in part, like it's the vacuum caused by the media and the lack of political leadership that just allows this thing of, of other siding this debate of saying, oh, well, we don't really need to take this action, and what about the effects that this will have on such and such a person? And that's not the full debate. It's like, okay, we do have a choice. Like, we can carry on as we are, but the consequences are going to be dire, and that's the part that's missing from, like, let's debate it. Maybe we don't want to have a livable future. Maybe we just want to carry on and have a cushy life for as long as that sustains. Like, but let's have the real debate. Let's have a debate with all the information, not this like cherry pick, like, I
do feel a little bit like we're in a bubble in Ireland, because we have the advantage of being on a small island in the North Atlantic, off the coast, where we have benefited so much from having a temperate climate. Yeah. And we're kind of, right now, the main effects we're feeling is people going on holidays are too hot. But we're kind of looking at it, and our bubble hasn't burst yet, and I don't think it'll become real until it does. But and we don't know how lucky we are.
Yeah,
and we still, and we're still going, oh yeah, it's not a great summer here. Well, I'd rather this than 40 degrees every day. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. I think the caveat for that, for me, is the food. Is the food situation. Is 80% of our food is imported.
But we are so not even conscious of that at all.
I know, and that comes back to huge lack of political leadership. That we should, in terms of making long-term plans for climate, we should be making a long-term food sovereignty, food security plan. And it's not even being discussed. I wonder, is this maybe a chance to to kind of sum up this bit, to have a listen to what Antonio Guterres has to say on everything we've been talking about, and I suppose on the political leadership aspect of it.
Humanity is in the hot seat. Today, the World Meteorological Organization and the European Commission's Copernicus Climate Change Service are releasing official data that confirms that July 2023 is set to be the hottest month ever recorded in human history. The consequences are clear and they are tragic. Children swept away by monsoon rains, families running from the flames, workers collapsing in scorching heat. And for scientists, it is unequivocal. Humans are to blame. All this is entirely consistent with predictions and repeated warnings. The only surprise is the speed of the change. The era of global warming has ended, the era of global boiling has arrived. The air is unbreathable, the heat is unbearable, and the level of fossil fuel profits and climate inaction is unacceptable.
Yeah, so he's just so good. He just makes everything so clear, and it's great to see that leadership. And he said the level of fossil fuel profit. He also said, I think the same day, the level of fossil fuel profits and climate inaction is unacceptable. Leaders must lead. No more hesitancy. No more excuses. No more waiting for others to move first. There's simply no more time for that. And here. So to wrap up, will we have a chat about where we go from here? What kind of actions we're planning on doing, or what we can do going forward?
Or we could talk about the RTE scandal.
That's been talked about to death.
Yeah, I know. When you see the amount of...
We could talk about the All-Ireland final.
Yeah,
By the time this comes out,
let's cover the big issues, Darragh.
we will
let's
know.
Stop wasting time on the small stuff. Okay, so my mindset changed a little bit. My decision that I was not going to freak out wavered a little bit, but I've come around to just being like, okay, I'm going to start walking into people's TD's offices. Can I go into TD's offices?
You
I'm going
can
to go
indeed.
to people's offices, anyone's office. I don't care if they work for the government. I'm going into offices and we'll start talking about climate change.
Yeah, in person.
I think I'm just going to keep doing whatever I'm doing. Just hope it all works out.
So I think there's a few events actually coming up. So there's the climate camp that Ciara are running,
which is in the northwest this year. Woohoo!
in Leitrim.
In Hamilton.
Are you going, Anna?
Yeah. I am. I'm going to get to some of it anyway. There's actually going to be a very good discussion there about data centres. That I'm
Dating centres.
Yeah, Darragh, you could come to that. Dating centres. Data centres and the role of data centres in hitting or missing our climate targets. So it's going to be a great event for people to get together and figure out how to work together on important issues and, you know, give each other support and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's on from the 9th to the 13th of August. Yeah.
August 9th to 13th,
I'm going to be there, I think, the Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh, excellent. So am I.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, great.
I am also thinking about going. To confirm, just for people, save them a bit of reading. You don't have to pay to go to this camp. You can just go, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. They do ask you to register, and we'll put the link in our show notes. But the only reason they ask that is just to get a sense for how many people are coming, because they provide food and stuff. And they do ask you to volunteer a wee bit when you're there. But there's a program of talks and events and all sorts of workshops and all sorts of things. And you can camp. It's in a big field outside Manorhamilton, and you can camp if you want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to camp.
So it's only down the road from you, Ciara.
Don't be giving people my address.
There is also another conference that friend of the podcast, Owen Gallivan, I think is part of the organising team, A New Climate for Psychology, on the 15th of September. So it's a psychology climate conference in Pearse Library in Dublin. So another date for the diary.
Great speakers there.
I just want to say that Owen Gallivan is one of my heroes. I just love listening to him talk about it.
Yeah, and John
She's-
Gibbons, one of your other heroes, is going to be there.
actually,
for that
I
as
have a lot
well.
of
and
heroes.
Yeah, she says the same about you, Tom, when you're not here as well. Just so
Yes, she
you
does,
know.
actually, Tom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
It's
love
kind of
Tom. I
embarrassing.
love all the people that come on our podcast.
Well, that's funny.
How many
actually,
glasses of wine have you
That's-
had, Ciara? Seriously.
I've had it's in the bottles now, Anna.
It's funny actually.
I've been drinking for weeks.
That's actually one thing I was thinking about, you know, when I was trying to think of actions that, you know, we could take, and, you know, thinking of getting myself out of the bit of funk that I was in. And one thing is just like, you know, appreciating all the people like in the movement who are trying and who are working. And I think for me particularly, you know, Tom, you mentioned it earlier, you know, the people who've been doing it for years, you know, who've been doing it for long before I have, and they're still going. And however bad things are, without the amazing work of a lot of people, they will be even worse already, you know.
Yep.
It's a bit like, I think it's maybe, you know, like the Titanic about to hit an iceberg, and people are maybe frantically leaning to one side of the boat trying to get it to move, you know, and maybe they got it to move a little bit and the ship's going to sink a little bit slower. But you know, there's so many people out there doing such amazing work to, you know, to make them a little less bad, and there's a lot of people to be grateful for.
Yep.
You know, or just, I think the other thing for me was just to kind of look back on things that I had, you know, the things that we're all trying to do, be the individual actions or the contacting politicians or putting this podcast out, that, you know, to just like, it's not enough, but it's something, and it's something to be proud of, and just, you know, kind of taking stock of what all of us have done, and that includes the people listening as well, that, you know, everyone is doing stuff, and it's not easy, but we're still going, and that's something to be proud of and be happy about, I think.
Can I just say as well, my sort of highlight of the week this week was the flying ants. I was in Donegal, and every year around this time we get a swarm of flying ants they just swarm, and they're gone. They don't do any harm. They're gone in a day or two. But I just thought, my God, that's still happening, because you know, at least that's still happening.
That's another thing I was thinking, is just appreciate all the stuff that's around us. You know, there's a few swifts around here at the moment.
Yep.
I think they're getting ready to go, and they're amazing, absolute wonders of nature. So great to watch, so great to hear screeching in the sky above you, and there is so much beauty out there still to appreciate it. So
oh my God, I love this section. I want to add one, because yesterday I was walking with the dog, and one of the roads up behind my house, it's like all these fields, and one of the roads has been left to grow over, and myself and the dog went through it, and when we walked through it, one of the roads that's all overgrown, all these pheasants, like loads, about 10 pheasants jumped out, and then I looked into the field, and there was all these little birds hopping over the grass, and I was like, wow, this is so beautiful. Your turn, Tom.
We won't burst your bubble about pheasants being an invasive species, Ciara, okay?
You guys.
Well, weirdly enough, I went to an academic conference, and they were talking about the
Wait, this is a highlight, an
necessity
academic
Tom, this is nature, not school.
no, it was genuinely amazing. The lecturer Annetta was talking about the importance of, she used the analogy of, like, when you're in a city and you're running for a bus, you're oblivious to everything else going on. You could easily run out in front of a car, but if you're walking up a slightly slippery mountain path, you have to think about every step. And like, in thinking about every step, you're so much more present. And like, the idea of, as we've talked about, and Ciara talked about this really well, like the idea of sustaining yourself in that moment, that idea of self-care by being present, whether that's walking the dog with the pheasants, or whether that's talking to a family member about why you're scared about the climate crisis, or sharing the Peter Kalmus article with them. That idea of being in the moment, it might be really scary. It might be a little slippery underfoot at times, but it's going to lead you forward. It's going to push you forward. And, you know, people get really overwhelmed by the idea of direct action. It doesn't have to be sitting in the road blocking traffic with Just Stop Oil, although if that's what you want to do, go for it, go and do that.
Fair play.
But it can be like something smaller but more impactful, because I think we often underestimate the impact that we can have on people around us, and that people care about us, and they might be more likely to share our fears or our hopes if we kind of share them.
And to have that courage. I mean, so we haven't mentioned the big loss this week of Sinead O'Connor, but the courage, if we all had the courage that she had to stand up and say
Yes.
what she felt strongly about, and to face down the boos and still go ahead and sing a protest song. So I think if we all had an ounce of that courage, we would be doing very well.
Absolutely. And I think one thing that is giving me a bit of hope at the moment is, I think, people who you would class as maybe climate moderates, and I'd probably put myself in that category, are realizing, it's not enough. And I think there's a lot of people kind of ready to step up and ready to increase their level of activity and go more down the direct action route. And I feel there's a lot of people waiting for someone to kind of lead on that, but I think there's a lot of people ready for that, and that's something that's.
I think that's a really good point that I have often slightly hoped that that I've believed in some weird conspiracy theory, that I have gone down a rabbit hole and gone, if none of this is true, that would be such a relief. And I think one of the nice things is the more moderates, as you say, are sort of coming out and going, no, we need more and we need faster action. That's really reassuring. It's scary too, but it's reassuring that you're not some weird sort of crackpot who's lost it and gone off the deep end. And I guess more of us together, hopefully, will kind of achieve more. I hope.
And there's lots of really good organisations doing really good work, and it will ramp up coming up to the elections, and that is an opportunity here in Ireland. So we will put a link in the show notes to just various organisations you can think about joining or contributing to or whatever, and you'll find great people there.
Yeah,
I love our podcast.
And then the last thing before we go, then when we were deciding to record this episode, we actually we were just going to put up a tweet and tag loads of people and say who wants to come on and have a chat, and just all get on, maybe 10 or 15 or 20 of us on a Zoom. I was going to call the meeting, what the fuck are we going to do?
Or the Doom Zoom.
Or the Doom Zoom. But that might be an option. If there are people listening there that just we won't record it, but just want to get on a Zoom and just have a chat with a few different people in the climate space. If there is interest in that, then just send us a message on the podcast, or we might get that going in a few weeks. Just to get it out there and have the chats. I'm definitely feeling the benefit of having done this podcast and gotten some stuff out there. Anyways,
I feel like I'm going to cry about the pheasants.
Sorry, Ciara. Sorry,
I hate you.
I could see Darragh ramping up to say it if I didn't. It's like.
That's it for this week. Thanks very much, Anna and Ciara and Tom. Great to chat to you.
Thanks, Darragh.
Thanks, Emil.
And just before you go, if you do like the podcast and want to contribute to the upkeep of it, you can do that by buying us a coffee on buymeacoffee.com/The Climate Alarm. And if you're not already following us on our socials, you can find us on Twitter at The Climate Alarm and on Facebook and Instagram at Climate Alarm Clock. We'll be back in September, ramping up to COP28. With our regular season.
Oh, yay! Thanks,
Bye.
Darragh.
Bye.
Bye.
I love our podcast.